And hello YouTube, this is GSmaniamsmart, and I'm today with a brand new video for Gaming with GS, and today we're here on Guild Wars 2, and I want to talk a little bit about the story, give you a story recap, my thoughts, some speculation on where we're going next, a review of the story, just in general of A Crack in the Ice, the Living World Season 3, Episode 3, that was recently released late November. I just finished the story actually, and the background footage you're seeing today is basically me finishing the story. If you'd like to see the background footage with full commentary, with my thoughts and impressions, first opinions, I will have the video on Patreon. If you are a Patreon for $3 or more, minimum $3, you can see that video. I think it's like a good 3 or 4 videos that I broke it up into, so if you're interested in that, the link will be in the description. But I know I'm kind of late. This patch has been out for about 2 weeks now, but surprisingly, the devs did not actually release a patch yesterday, Tuesday, like they usually do. So I think it's still relevant, and I thought some of you might be interested in a quick recap for those of you who can't play it, or haven't bought Heart of Thorns, want to keep with the story, or just interested in my thoughts and want to share your thoughts in the comments as well. So I guess it's sort of tradition that we do a recap of the stories every new patch release. Now, just to start off, I do want to say that a lot of people, or maybe not a lot of people, but a good amount of people didn't think this patch was very good, or at least the story wasn't very good. I think in general the patch received positive feedback, but the story seemed to have some negative feedback in it. And I can understand how at some points in the story there were some things where you'd scratch your head a bit and be like, you know, why did they do it like this? But in general, I thought it was a fairly fun story. I think we got lots of character development. I think there were some pretty fun and interesting story missions, and I think it was a fairly good length. Some story missions were a little short, but in general, I think we got a good sense of where the story is going. I think we got a good amount of information, and there was lots of character development going on in there. So I thought it was a great story. So it basically starts off with us seeing a vision of Aurene. Last patch we saw that Aurene hatched, and this patch we're starting by going back to Auric Basin. Now, I think I said it last summary of the last patch as well, but I'll say it again. I like how Aurene is taking older maps. Obviously Auric Basin isn't an old map, but it is a map that a lot of people may not go to much anymore. Obviously, people go there for the multi-loot mapping to make some gold, but other than that, nobody really goes back to it. So I like how they're incorporating older maps into the story. I would love to see them incorporate, you know, maps like Queensdale, or maps like Harathi Hinterlands, or some of the maps in Ascalon. If those could be incorporated into the story, that would be really cool. But they are incorporating older maps. And essentially, what happens at the start of this episode is we see visions of Aurene. And from these visions that we see of Aurene, interestingly enough, we also saw visions of Glint in Guild Wars 1. So I liked how they made the connection that we saw visions of Glint, and since this is an offspring of Glint, we're also seeing visions of Aurene. Now, whether that's signaling us that, you know, Aurene can basically talk to us through the mind as well, whether that's referencing that or whatever it may be referencing, I like the connection. And essentially we have to go to Auric Basin to try and figure out what's going on with Aurene and why we're seeing visions of her. Once we get there, we're actually informed by one of the Exalted that we apparently have some type of connection with Aurene, where she's able to give us a vision and we're able to see her, and she apparently is very fond of us, and we basically have to teach her to behave like a good dragon. So this was a really fun and cute mission, I think. This was sort of like one of these missions where they incorporate a lot of different elements, a lot of different play styles. There was one mission that, you know, dealt with hide and seek, where you had to find Aurene, so that was sort of like the fun type of mission. There was another mission where it was kind of puzzle-like, where you had to go through a maze and you had to find a way to shut off these, I believe they were like ooze generators. And then there were other little small tasks or mini missions within that big mission where you had to teach Aurene to get the survivors to a safe place. So lots of variability in this mission, and this was one of the longer missions, and I really liked it. I really liked how they incorporated different play styles and different elements into the story to make this a really enjoyable one. So that's basically what happens in the very first mission, and this is basically a way to help us bond with Aurene, help basically get our connection with her stronger, and make sure that she stays on our side. Other than that, though, the story mission basically ends. We help Aurene get good values. That's kind of the goal of this mission. And then Timey tells us that the destroyer samples that we got from the last Living World season episode basically confirms a theory that a lot of us have had. I've talked about this theory in the channel several times, where one Elder Dragon is possibly consuming the other Elder Dragon's magical powers after its death. So basically, when Zaitan died, we had Mordramoth take some of Zaitan's power. When Mordramoth died, we had Primordus take some of Zaitan's power and Mordramoth's power, and when Primordus will die, essentially Jourmag will take power from all of those different elements, including his own power. Well, apparently Timey is confirming that this is true, and she wants to make sure that this is true by telling us that we should get some type of sample from an ice brood in the Bitterfrost Frontier. Now, along with that, she also tells us that she wants to try and figure out if we can possibly face Primordus, the Fire Dragon, against Jourmag, the Ice Dragon. Now, this is a really interesting concept to me because the past two dragons that we killed, we were the ones to kill the past two dragons. We basically, as a player, killed the past two dragons. And for this time around, to deal with Jourmag and Primordus, it seems like we're setting up the story so that both of these dragons can go against each other and perhaps kill each other. Now, there's no saying that this will work. There's no saying that maybe it will work. Maybe one of them will die and another one won't. Maybe they'll both be really heavily weakened. No idea of how this will result, but it's nice to see that we are getting diversification in story, and this theory that all of us have had for such a long time is being confirmed, and they're actually going towards that direction. So we get told we need to find this ice brood sample from the north, and to get there we talk to some of the NPCs in Holbrack. Now, this is a very short mission, I think it is. I think we just go to Holbrack, find out about Braham, find out about the Tooth, and find out about Bitterfrost Frontier. But essentially, when you go there, you learn about the Tooth that's in Holbrack. Now, this Tooth has been in Holbrack for a long time, and they basically explain to us how this Tooth can give power to the Norn, and the Norn can rise if the Tooth gets damaged. Essentially, this Tooth was from Jourmag, and the legend has it that the Tooth was knocked out of Jourmag's mouth and it landed in Holbrack. And once a Norn can damage this Tooth, it's basically said that the Norn can rise to power. So that little bit of lore is explained to us, which I know a lot of people appreciated. I appreciated that as well. And we get told that Braham is also in the north looking for a scroll to find a way to damage the Tooth, which we'll go talk a little bit more in detail later on in the video. They also tell us that Bitterfrost Frontier is to the north, and that's very dangerous, and that we'll basically encounter the Quaggan and the Kodan there. And once we go to Frostgorge Sound, which is the northernmost place that we could explore before the patch, we actually get to enter the new area, Bitterfrost Frontier. Now, to enter the Bitterfrost Frontier, we obviously need to use a Kodan Flame, which is the new mastery track, and this goes to show already how much involved the Kodan are in this story arc. Now, the way the Kodan are involved in this story arc, I really liked. I feel like they were implemented very well into the story. Not only that, but the Quaggan also seemed to be very well implemented into the story as well. You basically get to interact with both the Kodan and the Quaggan within the Bitterfrost Frontier map, and we learn a lot about the lore, we learn a lot about the map, we learn a lot about the story with these different NPCs, about Jourmag, about the history, about the Kodan culture, about the Quaggan culture. So I feel like they did a really good job at implementing these two races and really helping the player learn about the lore, and really, giving some meaning and giving some value to the map, giving some value to the meta events, giving some value to the story that is in this Living World season episode. I also found it really cool how a lot of these different things and different elements in the story connected very well. What you'll learn is that the Kodan, what you'll learn from talking to the Kodan is that they're actually all about balance and keeping the balance. And if you think about it, in this map, the Bitterfrost Frontier, there's a meta event that revolves around keeping the balance, keeping the fire lit up so that it doesn't get too cold. And if you think about Primordus and Jourmag, there's also some sort of balance theme in that because fire versus ice. So the way these Kodans were placed into the story, the way the meta event revolved around Bitterfrost Frontier, the way they set the story up with Jourmag and Primordus, I think it was really well done and really well connected. Just a small little thing that I thought was really cool that some people had mentioned and also really appreciated, and I also appreciated very well too. It goes to show how much time and work goes into these patches, and of how deep this stuff can go in planning and and production and actually putting it all into the game, and how well this all connects. So I really appreciate that bar of quality. But as we'll go through this video, you'll see that near the end of this patch, quality does sort of drop, which is kind of disappointing. But up to now, I think everything is really well done, and the bar of quality that we had in the last 2 episodes is definitely at that point, and maybe even a little higher than the actual bar that we had in the last 2 episodes. But anyhow, we basically go to the sanctuary in Bitterfrost Frontier. It's basically a sanctuary for the Kodan and for the Quaggan, and we get to talk to the Kodan leader. Now, the Kodan leader informs us that we should be very careful and that we're going towards our death, and the Quaggan informs us that, and the Quaggan informs the Kodan that we're here to help and make a change. And essentially, they inform us that there's a more powerful ice brood, which is the ice brood that we're looking for, in the north of Bitterfrost Frontier, which is called the Bitter Cold. Now, the Quaggan also ask us to look for their herd mates that are missing, and that's an important part that I want you to pay attention to, because as the video progresses, there will be a note that I was very disappointed with. But just be aware that the herd mates are missing, and one of the Quaggans is asking us to find these. Now, to get to the Bitter Cold, which is where the ice brood is and where the missing herd mates are apparently or were last seen, to get there we need to find a potion to withstand the cold. Now, if you don't have a potion and you try to go into the Bitter Cold, you'll basically get tons of damage done to you, and you can't really enter that area without this potion. Now, to get this potion, we need to talk to a shaman, and the leader of the Kodan in the sanctuary tells us there's a shaman nearby, and we talk to the shaman. They'll give us more information on how to basically brew this potion. So we get to the shaman, and they tell us we need to talk to the Sons of Svanir. And the Sons of Svanir will tell us how to brew the potion, apparently. So it's a lot of walking between one party to the next party to figure out how to brew this potion. But I enjoyed that because this is a new map, and it was fun to explore the underwater area and talk to the shaman, and then go higher up into the map, into the sanctuary, and talk to the Kodan and the Quaggan, and then head all the way west to the Sons of Svanir. So it was pretty cool. Now, essentially, what you need to do is, when you get to this point in the story, we need to talk to the Sons of Svanir. And at the beginning, it seems crazy because the Sons of Svanir would never talk to us as a player, obviously. So what does Aurene decide to do? They are gonna implement the same system that they implemented in Ember Bay last episode, where they basically turn you in. Well, we basically were friends of the Mersat, and we were able to climb up the fortress and complete one of our story missions. Same thing happens here, basically. We are going to be disguising ourselves as a Svanir so that we can enter this little room that we get to talk to the leader, or, well, the leader of that little area, one of the Svanir there. And he basically tells us how to brew the potion. So essentially what happens is you have to kill a bunch of Sons of Svanir, get some armor pieces, and then you disguise yourself and you become one of these Sons of Svanirs, and you're able to talk to one of the leaders inside your little hideout that you wouldn't be able to enter otherwise. So it's very similar to Ember Bay. When we tried to talk to the dwarf, we couldn't talk to the dwarf because the script wouldn't let us in. Same thing basically happens here. Now, this is a cool little mechanic that I've been using for the past 2 patches that I really like, and it's really neat. I'm waiting to see if they can go further with this, because I would love to see some sort of player versus player interaction, which seems completely out of the realm of possibility. I don't think that would ever happen, but it'd be cool to have some extra elements or some extra layers on top of that. They seem to like using this mechanic a lot. They used it a couple times in the original game, in the core game, and they used it last patch. Now they're using it again, so it seems like this is a very useful it seems like this is a very useful way to tell certain parts of the story and get certain things done. So I'm hoping to see that they bring this. I'm hoping to see they take this a little further, maybe, and add some extra layers on top of. But it was really fun to be a Svanir and actually see how now you're actually a friendly person, and they don't attack you, and you see other people fighting them. I just thought it was really cool. But we end up talking to the Svanir guy, and he tells us how to brew one of these potions. Now, one thing that was really interesting when you got to this point in the story, it seemed like the Sons of Svanir were this race that wasn't very intelligent. They were talking weird. They didn't really comprehend or understand. Some Svanirs didn't even talk at all, or didn't seem to know how to talk. And in the game, they didn't do a very good job at explaining why this is so. Fortunately, though, one of the developers on Reddit in the AMA did explain how this happened to be the way it is. So apparently, what happened is that the Savanier have always been very close to Jourmag. They always seem to want to be close to Jourmag, somehow gain its power, maybe even go to the lengths of worshipping it, I guess, but I don't really think that's sort of what it is. It's sort of more being close to it and trying to gain power. But essentially what they're doing is they are going very deep into their ritual to try and gain this power and become close with Jourmag. And the Sons of Savaniers that are in the Bitterfrost Frontier here have gone to such large lengths in this little tradition or this ritual to accomplish their task is that they're slowly becoming ice brewed. And as they're becoming ice brewed, they're losing the ability to talk, they're losing the ability to comprehend and understand. And that's kind of why the Sons of Savanier have been sort of made as a joke and have sort of been described as being kind of stupid and not knowing how to talk really. And while the comedic relief of that did work, I know that was pretty funny to see how Sons of Savanier were talking like that, and how we were able to fool one of the leaders. And if you were a small sir, or if you were a huge char, we were able to fool them just by wearing this armor. Was really cool. So it was really funny. So obviously the comedic relief and the comedy aspect of that did succeed, but it was kind of disappointing to see how they didn't really include that in the story. There was no way a person who's not on Reddit probably would have been confused maybe, and probably wouldn't fully understand what was going on. But I guess that's why you're watching this video, to sort of get all these little bits that you may not know about. So I thought that was really cool, and that was a neat way to approach that piece of lore with the Sons of Savanier. I just wish they would have made it a bit more evident in the game so that people will know about it a bit more. But from here on, we basically get the information on how to brew this elixir, and this elixir will basically help us withstand the bitter cold, the very harsh winds in the cold areas in the bitter cold area. And they tell us that we need several ingredients. I think we need like the new berries that are the currency in the map, we need a few eggs, and we also need heat from the heart of Tyria. This quest I really like, this mission I really like, mainly because it kind of forces you to explore the map. It kind of tells you need to complete some of the hearts, or not complete the hearts, but basically participate in the hearts. Sometimes you'll complete the heart along the way, just accidentally. And I like how they're incorporating the map more. A lot of their stories not much instanced anymore. We used to have living world episodes where a lot of the content was instanced, and I didn't really like that, mainly because it didn't incorporate the live world enough. It didn't incorporate the other players or the NPCs or the hearts or the environment as much as it's doing now. I really like how the world map and the new PvE content that they're producing is able to be implemented with the actual storyline, and those two things interact very well with each other. So that's a positive note that I thought was really cool, and I really like that. There obviously still is instance content, especially with the world boss, especially with the final bosses, and obviously the huge parts of the story. But for the most part, the majority of the past three patches we had, 3 major patches, episode 1, 2, and 3 in Living World Season 3, have done a really good job at incorporating the live world and the new map and sort of minimalizing the instance content. So that mission basically tells you to go around the map and collect things and complete some of the hearts. And once we get the ingredients, we have to go to the hot springs, which is a really neat little area that's tucked away in the southeastern area of the map that I really enjoy. And essentially we go there, we brew the potion, the Quaggan tells us that we don't want to help you have to find the potion yourself, which I thought was really cool. This actually leads to the fact that developers did not mark a green star as they usually do in the map to show you where this hot spring is. Since the Quaggan don't want to help you and tell you where it is, since it's obviously gonna lead you to danger and you'll probably die, you basically have to find it yourself. Now I really like this because it basically gave the player an opportunity to explore, to look for the objective themselves. A lot of Guild Wars 2 is a lot of hand holding, and while that's good in the beginning, I always say that in the beginning players should be handheld to sort of help them get the idea and help them learn the ropes of the game. I do feel like a lot of the newer content that you should have enough experience playing Guild Wars 2 is a bit too much focused on hand-holding. So I like that we basically had to find this hot spring on our own. Even though it wasn't very hard to find, I still appreciated that. Some people didn't like it, some people did like it, some people were complaining about it, that they had to look for it and they weren't given a guide. So various different opinions on that, but I like this type of content where you basically have to look and explore and, not just be told where you have to go. And it basically gives you a bit more immersion, so I appreciated that. But from here on, it basically sort of drops in quality the entire patch, and here's where it kind of gets a bit disappointing. Now, we basically find the Ice Brood, and we get the samples, and we tell Timmy we got the samples, and everything works out just fine, and as you'd expect. But what's really disappointing is that once we brew the potion, we have to go to the bitter cold, which is the very cold area that we can't withstand without the potion. In this bitter cold area, we're able to actually fight the Ice Brood and get the samples that Timmy needs. However, what I really find disappointing is that the bitter cold, while it looks like a really cool area, there's a small little jumping puzzle there, and there's some chests you can get. There's also a lot of different enemies that you can fight in huge groups. That is really cool to fight, but in reality, there's no real reason to ever come back to the bitter cold. There's no real reason to ever collect the ingredients to make another potion. There's no real reason to ever really bother to go back into this area that's supposedly locked off and gated by a potion that you can only make to go there. There's no real reason. There are chests there, I guess, so I guess there's a small incentive. There's a mastery point there, another small incentive. But other than that, there's no real reason to go back there. I feel like there could have been so much more added to the bitter cold. There could have been so much more incentive for you to keep on coming back to the map, and they missed the opportunity. And this is one of the problems this map has. One of the problems this map has is that it's not very relevant anymore to players in the future. Just like I said in the other video, where we talked about cooking and where we talked about the new berry currencies, these new berries, winter berries, of how there's new recipes and you can cook these things. And if they would have made these auctionable items, you could have sold these items, made some gold, would have been a way to make gold, and people would be coming back to Bitterfrost Frontier to collect berries and, make these new cooking items and sell them and make some profit. And that was a great way to make the map relevant. And it seems like they failed here again, where they could have made the bitter cold a bit more interesting, a bit more rewarding, a bit more relevant in the future for people to actually come back for a reason. And once again, they missed the opportunity to make this map relevant in the future. And it seems like Bitterfrost Frontier is just going to be another Harathi Hinterlands or Queensdale, where you don't really ever go unless there's a specific daily there. And that was just kind of disappointing. Along with that, though, it seems like a lot of the content from here on was also sort of rushed. Not only is this evident by the bitter cold being kind of empty and not having much content, but in the specific mission where you fight the Ice Brood and collect the samples, there's also barely any dialogue, which I thought was really weird too. But on top of that, it even gets worse, because as soon as you finish that mission where you fight the Ice Brood, and mind you, the fight with the Ice Brood isn't very good either. There's not many mechanics. It's not very challenging either. It seems like a very easy boss, and I was actually really surprised that it was really that brainless. You basically just drag the boss to a bunch of these little slugs that you basically kill, and then it does damage to the boss, and it just seemed really easy. But like I was saying, it gets even worse, because after you finish this mission, you basically head back to the sanctuary where the Quaggan and the leader of the Kodan were of that sanctuary. And what we find out is that we report back to the Quaggan that the herd mates were dead. Now, when I first heard about this, I was like, okay, I guess they're dead. But in my head, I'm thinking, we never saw any herd mates. Did I miss a part of the story? Did I miss something? Did I accidentally skip a cutscene or something? But no, I didn't. I actually didn't skip anything. It seems like they completely cut that portion out of the game, out of episode 3. We didn't see any herd mates. We had no interaction with any herd mates. We literally were just told by the Quaggan before the mission, saying, okay, let me know if you find any herd mates. We got to the bitter cold, and we fought the Ice Brood, and that's it. We came back and said, oh, your herd mates are dead. Even though there was no indication of ever, meeting the herd mates, there was no indication of ever finding dead bodies, nothing. It just seems like this specific mission was very rushed. It seems like it was not very well done. The boss is very lackluster. The bitter cold area is very irrelevant, and it just seems rushed. So that was disappointing. It seems like a part of the story was cut out, and hopefully this isn't the kind of content that we'll see in future maps. I don't know if this means that developers need more time. I don't know if it means that they're gonna have to, produce rushed content like this. But from here on, it does kind of get crappy, the patch, I would say. Up to this point, everything was really good. So anyway, what happens next, we get to go to the final mission. We basically go back to the sanctuary, we tell the Quaggin that their herd mates are dead, sadly, and we tell them that we found the Ice Brood. And we find out that Braham is actually being attacked by the Sons of Svanir. Now, why in the world could Braham be getting attacked by the Sons of Svanir? And that's what I was thinking as I'm making my way to the cave to see Braham. I'm thinking, why the hell is Braham getting attacked? He hasn't been in a story the entire time. And what it seems like, what apparently happened is that, remember how we disguised ourselves as a Svanir and basically tricked the leader to tell us about the potion so we can actually brew it and get into bitter cold? Well, it seems like that the Svanirs thought the person who tricked them was Braham. Personally, I thought this was a really lazy way to introduce Braham. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but why Braham? Why did they say, oh, okay, we're just gonna bring Braham into the story because we're gonna say, oh, the Svanir thought it was him. I mean, they could have picked anybody. They could have picked another cool way to bring Braham into the story, but instead they picked some weird arbitrary, oh, Svanirs thought that it was you who tricked them. And while they do sort of connect it very well, as I'll talk a little about how Braham gets angry at the commander of the player and how there's some tension between them. While it does connect very well to that, I feel like some better approaches could be made. We also don't seem to track down Braham at all. Like I said, this part of the story seems very rushed. We were told they were supposed to track down Braham. In fact, we don't even track down Braham. We just go to a point on the map where apparently we know where he is, and as soon as we get into the cave, we see him. So that felt rushed, and it seemed like they needed a reason to bring Braham into the story. They needed to find a way to bring him in, and I just felt like there were better ways to bring him in rather than just Sons of Svanir thinking it was him who was disguised and tricked him. But essentially, in the final mission, we find Braham, and he seems kind of off. His behavior seems very off. But in this story mission, once again, it also seems very lazily done. If you remember in the, which patch was it? Bloodstone Fen patch, there was a point in the story where we were with Kaith, and we were talking to Kaith, and at the same time we were fighting waves of enemies. And it was something new that Aurene had tried, and I thought it was a pretty cool idea. I think I was kind of double-sided on it. One part of me felt like I couldn't fully pay attention to it. Other side of me thought it was really cool because it gave us something to do while listening to the dialogue. It seemed like they tried to do this again, but they did it really terribly. What basically happens is that you get tons of waves of mobs coming at you. You get waves of wolves coming at you. You get waves of ice brood coming at you. You get waves of ice elementals, and you get waves of spiders coming at you. And in between those fights, you get some story. So you don't even get story while fighting them. You get story in between these waves, and it feels like these waves are just tanky enemies that basically just waste your time and try to make the mission longer because they needed a way to make the mission longer, so it isn't just, okay, go in, fight the boss, and that's it. That's honestly what it felt like. While I appreciate the fact that they're trying to implement something that was very successful previously, once again into this mission, it just wasn't done very well because you were walking, and then you would have some story while walking, and then you would have a bunch of mobs to fight in waves. And then you were walking again, you would get some story, and then you would stop and you would fight a bunch of mobs in a bunch of waves. It would have been cool if it happened at the exact same time. It would have been cool if they weren't just tanky and you would just sit there taking forever to DPS them. I know that some people played as 2s or 3s, and it wasn't a problem, but playing as one person in that instance felt so slow. It felt so boring and unfun. While there was good information, there was good dialogue. We got some information from Braham and the commander, and some character development and interaction, and we saw tension build between the commander and Braham, which I'll go a little more in detail in just a second. But the fights just seemed so long. I died several times because these were just tanky things that weren't taking much damage, and they just were meant to put in there to take up your time and make the mission longer. So I felt like that was kind of just thrown in there to take up time, and it wasn't very well done. There weren't many interactions or mechanics. It just was very plain and kind of random even. In that story instance as well, it seems like we also get information that Codicus, which was basically, he declared himself as leader of the White Mantle is apparently in the Isles of Janthier. Now, as soon as I heard that, I was like, whoa, we're getting word on the Isles of Janthier. And I used to play several other games in the past, several other MMOs, and whenever they would bring up a new area name or a part of the map that we haven't been to, usually that would mean that they would create that map in a future release for us to play. And for the most part, that's been sort of true in Guild Wars 2. I mean, there have been some mentions where we have never been to, obviously. But could this mean we're going to the Isles of Janthier next? I mean, why else would they, bring the Isles of Janthier into the last mission here in the story and talk about Codicus, how he's going there? Why would they bring that up? So maybe that's a foreshadowing for the fact that we might be going to the Isles of Janthier next, which would be really cool because we've never been there, and this would be really new content for all of us from Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, and we're really cool to see what direction they go with this. But eventually you get to the final boss, and the final boss, once again, isn't that great either. Like I said, the quality seems to have really dropped in the last 2 or 3 missions or so. Essentially, this boss is a huge beast that you have to try and break the break bar, and you'll notice that you can't even break the break bar. So to break the break bar, you actually have to allow it to charge and run at you, and you'll dodge out of the way in the last second so it can actually hit some of these ice elementals that are in the room with you. And once all these little elementals are gone, once the beast has charged through all of them, there will be a scroll that becomes active. Once you interact with that scroll, Braham will basically take it, fire its arrow at the beast, and you can just DPS it down. And that's basically the boss fight. Now, the reason why this boss fight was so poorly done is because, one, the objective is not very clear. I was there for about 5 or 10 minutes trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, dying a couple times because I didn't know how to break the break bar. So the objective was kind of unclear. There also weren't any interesting mechanics or interesting interactions with the boss, other than him charging at you, and you'd have to sort of align him up with the elementals so he can charge through them and kill all the elementals. But other than that, there wasn't really anything to it. It also just seemed like a massive DPS fest at the end. You only got to do this little charging thing once, where you'd have to kill all the elementals in the room, and then from that point on, after doing it one time there, you basically just DPS your way to the very end, and it seemed like a really, really easy fight. There's an achievement even that says, oh, if you can kill this guy under 5 minutes, then you get an achievement. And I feel like this achievement is really easy to do, because literally all you need to do is just have him kill all the elementals, and then from that point on, you just DPS like hell and he's dead. So it's like a really easy and lazy boss fight again. But story-wise, it gets really interesting here. So I did mention earlier that there was some tensions between the commander, the player character, and Braham, and this is true. If you remember, Air did die in Heart of Thorns, and Air is Braham's mother. Now, he's still taking this very hard, and he still is, I guess not really blaming the commander, but he's sort of holding people accountable for his mother's death. And he's very determined to get things done and honor his mother. He's very determined to make sure that other mothers don't die, as he stated in the story. And he's very determined and kind of irrational to kill these other dragons. So what we find out is that he has this conflict with the commander. He's not very patient anymore. He feels like he has too many obligations. He feels like not many people are caring about his mother too much, or that's at least what I got from him, because he seemed like he needed to prove something, and that basically causes tension with the commander. The commander is very irrational. He wants to take things slow, and that's how the player character is. Braham is being the complete opposite. He wants to be very irrational. He wants to be, charging into the fight and getting things done quickly. So he comes up with the plan that he's going to use this scroll to shoot the arrow, and he's enchanted the bow now. So he's going to use the enchanted bow, he's enchanted the bow with the scroll. He's going to shoot the arrow at the tooth in Holbrack, and if the tooth gets damaged, that means he'll be able to take on Jourmag with this bow and with the enchantment from the scroll. Now, obviously, the commander thinks this is a crazy idea, because this is a huge Elder Dragon, and you can't take the Elder Dragon lightly. It's going to be lives in the line. People are going to die. But Braham doesn't seem to pay any attention to it, and he wants to get things done. He's being very irrational about it, and he just wants to act on his emotions. So there's a good few minutes of them two arguing there, and Braham even coming to a point where he's insulting the commander. And I really liked how Aurene wasn't afraid to go in this direction. This is another great way to develop these characters. We see a lot of character development here, and a lot of people said that this patch wasn't very good because the story wasn't very good, there wasn't much happening. But for me, I think there was a lot happening here. I mean, we got word on how to we got word on how we're gonna deal with Jourmag. We got word on how we're gonna deal with Primordials by putting them against each other. We got word on what the status with Aurene is. We got word on Braham and his goal to try and honor his mother, and now we have tensions between the commander and Braham, and the story arc of Air is continuing. So I mean, I feel like there was a lot going on here, and I really liked how they weren't afraid to go in this direction where obviously they weren't afraid to do it with Keith, how Keith took the egg, obviously. So they weren't afraid to do it with Braham either, of how he turned kind of like into an asshole, I guess. I mean, he's not being very considerate, he's being very selfish, he's being very irrational, and he's just thinking about himself. And that's great character development. You know, it's good to see that characters sometimes can change. There are spikes in character personalities depending on what happens in the story, and this feels like a living story with living characters who have personalities and whose feelings change over time. So I really like that, and that's basically how the story ends. Bran basically fires the arrow. It does put a crack into the tooth, and you can even see that crack in the tooth when you go back into Holdbrag after the story instance, and that's basically how it ends. So what will happen next? Will we fight Jourmag next? I don't think we're going to fight Jourmag in the next episode. Probably not in the next episode either. After that one, I think maybe for an expansion, maybe we'll actually see Primordials and Jourmag go against each other, and Bran won't have enough time to actually do it himself. Who knows what will happen, but the story did end on a really cool note. I really liked how it ended. Sadly, my game crashed. I don't know why my game crashed right before the cutscene. So I basically have to do the entire instance again, but I was able to see the footage from my YouTube video that someone uploaded playing the story. So because I didn't want to play the entire story instance again, it was so sluggish and slow, and it was so terribly done. I was like, screw this, I'm looking at a YouTube video. So but yeah, I think it was a great story. I think this patch really had a lot of fun content in it. While it did drag a bit at the very end of the story, the quality bar did drop a little bit. Overall, I still love this patch, and I still love how these Living World episodes are ending. They're really ending on a cliffhanger where you really want more, and they're doing a really fantastic job with them, and I can't wait to see where the next episode will be. I can't wait to see if we go to another new map. It seems like every new episode we're going to a new region. Bloodstone Fen's in a region, Ember Bay's in a region, Bitterfrost Frontier's in a region. We go to the Isles of Janthier next. Would love to go there, but at the same time, I don't want them to do another stupid Asura portal, so perhaps they won't do it next patch. Maybe they'll do it the patch after that, like Living World episode number 5 maybe. Who knows, but I'm really excited. Let me know what you guys think. Did you guys like the story? What are some of your criticisms? What did you like? What didn't you like? Leave a comment down below if you want to say anything, if you want to mention anything. I'll definitely be down there answering questions, talking to you guys as usual, giving my feedback, and communicating with all of you, talking about the game, talking about story. So feel free to comment. If you haven't subscribed yet, go and subscribe. We'd love to have you on board. We have plenty of other Guild Wars 2 content. We do story discussions like this. We do story recaps. We do discussion about the patches, summaries about the patches. We have gold guides. We have ascended gear guides. We have fractal guides. We have guides on a ton of different things. And we have giveaways in the channel, lots of cool stuff. So if you're interested in Guild Wars 2, if you're interested in gaming in general, go ahead and subscribe. We're getting near that 6,000 subscriber mark. Thank you all for the support, for the continuous support. And like I said, if you want to donate $8 to my Patreon page, anything as low as that is very much appreciated. If you want to donate $3 or more, you get access to a ton of bonus content as well, including the background footage today with commentary and my full impressions and a bit more of a casual playthrough. Then you'll get that content as well. So if you want to do so, link is in the description, as well as a card on screen right now at the very top right corner. And if you want to check out the vlogging channel, in fact, I did a recent Mad Libs challenge with my girlfriend. Really fun video. God, I love that challenge. First time did it. If you want to check that out, you can check the vlogging channel. If you want to check out the tutorials channel, the music channel, the device channel, all links in the description and on the end screen. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. As always, guys, really appreciate it. Hope you guys are having a good evening. Hopefully enjoyed the story. And this is GSmaniamsmart. I'll be back sooner than you think. Don't go anywhere.